Well, we're going to turn now to the White House selling its case to attack Syria. New reports of the Obama administration showing some senators horrifying images of the chemical weapons attack they believe was carried out by the Assad government. The President Obama stepping up his intense campaign to persuade the American people military action is the only solution. ABC's Jeff Zeleny has the story from the White House. Good morning, Jeff. And these are some of the most gruesome and disturbing videos we have seen come out of this Syrian crisis yet.
Good morning, Bianna. You're right. They are gruesome and they're graphic. But these images are part of a central case here that President Obama is trying to make to overcome a growing tide of public opinion as he tries to make his case for why military strikes against Syria are necessary.
Obama! Hands off Syria!
As anti-war protesters rallied outside the White House and across the country,
No war on Syria!
the president is calling lawmakers. The vice president is preparing to host skeptical Republicans for Sunday night dinner. And Secretary of State John Kerry is pressing hard with war-weary European allies.
But this is not the time to be silent spectators to slaughter.
A full-court press from an Obama administration in crisis. And overnight, ABC News obtained what is now at the heart of the administration's case to Congress. A series of 13 videos senators viewed in a classified briefing last week, with images far too gruesome to watch in full. The disturbing pictures of Syrian civilians, many are children. They are the same heartbreaking images that prompted this response from Senator Dianne Feinstein when asked why so many Americans oppose military action.
Then they don't know what I know. They haven't heard what I heard.
The administration now hoping those images have the same effect on the American people. Still, it's a tough sell for President Obama, the toughest of his presidency. He will sit down with network news anchors for interviews on Monday, followed by an address to the American people on Tuesday.
Now, the White House is getting some help making its argument. Retired Army General David Petraeus, the former CIA director, is now calling for strong action against the Syrian regime. The White House hopes that that helps win over some Republicans. But as this vote in the Senate comes as early as Wednesday, our survey of lawmakers over the weekend shows that the White House still needs at least a dozen more senators on their side. And in the House, the skepticism is even deeper. So, Bianna, a lot of work ahead for the White House.
Yeah, a tense weekend kicking off what will be a tense week for the president. All right, Jeff, our thanks to you. And tomorrow night, tune in for Diane Sawyer's interview with President Obama on World News ahead of his address to the nation Tuesday.
Let's bring in George Stephanopoulos, host of This Week. George, as we sit here on this Sunday morning on the eve of the president's big push with those network interviews tomorrow and then the address to the nation on Tuesday night, how would you place the odds of success for him in Congress?
Well, if the vote were held today, he would lose. There's no question about that. I think he does have a decent chance of getting those votes, those 12 votes that Jeff Zeleny said he needs in the Senate, starting this week to pass it through. And I think the White House hope is that then that will start to build momentum that will halt the erosion in the House and start to get those numbers back up, particularly among Democrats. Another key event could be, and you saw the French say they're waiting for this, the report from the UN inspectors next weekend on the chemical weapons use in Syria. That could also provide more ammunition for the White House. But if it were today, no question about it, he would lose.
And George, if he doesn't get the votes he needs, how likely is it that he will still strike? I mean, that seems to be a lose-lose position to be in.
Well, it sure does, and it would be the first time that's ever happened to a United States president, losing a vote like that on military force. I think it is all but impossible at this point for the president to go forward in the face of no votes in the Congress. Listen to what he said on Friday night in Russia. I did not put this resolution before Congress as a political ploy or as symbolism. He said he could not say that this Syrian use of chemical weapons posed a threat to the United States. In the face of that, I don't see how the president could go forward. Now, is it possible, for example, that he gets a yes vote in the Senate and then the House simply doesn't vote? Maybe that's a way out. Unclear.
What are the stakes for his presidency and the rest, and in his ability to get things done the rest of this term if he fails?
It's hard to believe that, just a month ago this wasn't even contemplated. Now it's become the most important vote of his presidency. It will damage, if he loses, it will damage America's credibility on the world stage and complicate everything else he's doing in these final 3.5 years with Congress.
Huge stakes for the president. George, thank you. And George is going to have much more on the crisis in Syria coming up later this morning on This Week, right here on ABC. George, thanks again.